This is unreal. This is unreal. And I would never see my daughter again because of this monster.
When they found her body behind the wall. They nailed her body behind the wall.
This was a horrific crime. Now, not only did this bring pain to the family, it brought pain to the community.
And I was praying. I said, God, please don't let it be her. Please don't let it be her. And he did not answer my prayer.
Picture this. You're searching for your missing daughter. You know exactly where her phone last pinged. You tell the police. They search the house. They find nothing. Your daughter is still missing. But here's what keeps you up at night. What if she was there the whole time? What if she was hidden so well that trained officers walked right past her? Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to thank every single person who has commented, shared, and engaged with our content. We read every comment, every message, and your support means the world to us. Whether you're on YouTube at True Crime Unraveled or following us on Facebook and TikTok as True Crime Unraveled TV, you're the reason we can tell these stories. Keep those comments coming, your theories, your insights, your support for these families. Now, back to September 2025. 28-year-old Renea Lewis sent her mother a text message on a Friday night. By Sunday, she had vanished. Her family tracked her phone to a specific address in Vallejo, California. Police entered that house, searched it, and declared they found no sign of her. 2 days later, with a search warrant in hand, investigators returned to that same house. And that's when they discovered what no family should ever have to see: Renea's dismembered body, concealed behind a false wall, hidden in an attic space that had been expertly disguised. The question that haunts this case isn't just who killed Renea Lewis. It's how did her body remain hidden during that first search? And what does that tell us about the nature of evil, the kind that doesn't just take a life, but erases it, buries it behind walls, hoping it will never be found? Let me tell you about Renea Lewis, because she deserves to be more than a statistic, more than Vallejo's 14th homicide of 2025. She was 28 years old, just days away from turning 29. Her family described her as vibrant, family-oriented, someone who lit up every room she entered. She loved cooking, really loved it, the kind of person who'd spend hours perfecting a recipe just to see her family smile. Renea lived in Berkeley, about 25 miles from Vallejo, but she visited Vallejo often. She had family there, friends there, roots that pulled her back regularly. She was independent, strong-willed, the kind of woman her family called a fighter. She made her own choices, lived her own life, but never lost that connection to the people who loved her. On Friday, September 26, 2025, around 9 or 10 in the evening, Renea was last seen near 14th Street and Star Avenue in Vallejo. She'd been visiting family that weekend. Her mother, Terry Lewis, had texted her that Friday. When she didn't hear back, Terry assumed Renea had put her phone on Do Not Disturb, something she did often when she was going to sleep. But Sunday came, and still no word. That's when Terry knew something was wrong. See, there's a difference between your child not responding for a few hours and them going completely silent. Every parent knows that feeling, the one that starts as a whisper in your gut and grows into a scream you can't ignore. Terry had the Life 360 app on her phone. For those who don't know, it's a location-sharing app families use to keep track of each other. When Terry checked it, she saw Renea's last known location, 14th Street in Vallejo, near a house that would soon become the center of a nightmare. The family filed a missing persons report that Sunday, September 28th. And here's where the story takes its first turn. The Vallejo Police Department didn't waste time. They entered Renea's information into the missing persons database immediately. They even went to that house on 14th Street that same day, the house where the Life 360 app said Renea had been. Officers conducted what they called a welfare check and a cursory search. They checked rooms, closets, places where a person could hide. They found nothing. No sign of Renea Lewis. No indication she'd ever been there. The family was devastated but not deterred. They launched their own search, combing through the neighborhood, following every lead, retracing every step. And then they found something that turned their blood cold, Renea's phone. Not on a sidewalk. Not in a car. On the roof of a nearby school. Think about that for a second. How does a phone end up on a school roof? Was it thrown there? Was someone trying to buy time, to throw investigators off the trail? The discovery raised more questions than answers, but it confirmed one terrifying truth. Something terrible had happened to Renea Lewis. Let's talk about this house on 14th Street, because understanding this location is crucial to understanding how Renea remained hidden. Neighbors described it as an eyesore. Some said it looked abandoned, with boarded-up windows and a yard that resembled a junkyard. Others called it a hoarder house, the kind of place you'd avoid, the kind that makes you uncomfortable just looking at it. Inside, the conditions were apparently extreme. We're talking about a home so cluttered, so packed with refuse and debris, that navigating it required turning sideways and shuffling through narrow pathways. For law enforcement, searching a hoarder property is a nightmare. Every surface is obscured. Every space is compromised. Hidden entrances, concealed doors, secret compartments, they all disappear under layers of garbage and clutter. Behind the main house sat a detached unit, almost like a granny flat or a separate living space. This is reportedly where Douglas Irwin Shaw lived. Shaw, 41 years old, worked as a mechanic at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, the theme park in Vallejo. He was a father of 2 young daughters. By all outward appearances, just another guy going to work, living his life. But appearances, as we know, can be the most dangerous lies. On Monday, September 29th, the urgency escalated. The California Highway Patrol issued an Ebony Alert, a public safety notification specifically designed for missing Black individuals. The FBI joined the investigation, bringing resources and expertise that local departments often lack.
The last location was here, and her last location pinged right here, but we still looked in the area, we looked in garbage cans, we looked everywhere.
Jakeem Green says his family's been looking for his cousin Renea Lewis since she was reported missing on Sunday.
They knew Renea's phone had last pinged at that house. They knew something was wrong. By Tuesday, September 30th, detectives had enough. They obtained a search warrant based on new information. We don't know exactly what that information was, but it was enough for a judge to sign off on a more thorough, invasive search of the property. This time, they weren't just looking in closets and under beds. They were cutting through drywall, examining crawl spaces, surveying every inch of that house with the kind of scrutiny that the first search couldn't provide. And that's when they found it, a concealed entry into the attic. Not an obvious hatch or a pull-down ladder. A false wall, expertly disguised to blend seamlessly with the rest of the structure. Behind that wall, in the darkness of the attic space, lay Renea Lewis. Reports indicate her body had been dismembered. The family later stated she had been nailed behind that wall, hidden so thoroughly that the first search missed her completely. Imagine being Terry Lewis. Imagine knowing your daughter was in that house while officers searched it. Imagine the agony of those 2 days between the first search and the discovery, when you're still holding on to hope, still believing she might be found alive.
Lewis's heartbroken mother, Terry, was at the scene when police found her daughter's body on Tuesday. She spoke to KTVU by phone on Wednesday.
This is unreal. This is unreal. I would never see my daughter again because of this monster.
She and police confirmed the two were not a couple and may have met only recently.
She was a grown woman. What choices she made was on her. I still love her, no matter what. I love all my children, no matter what they're doing, good or bad.
What did she do to you for you to kill her and then put her in a wall? When he said, "We found your daughter," I just collapsed. I was like, I can't believe this. And I was praying. I said, God, please don't let it be her. Please don't let it be her. And he did not answer my prayer.
When they found her body behind the wall. They nailed her body behind the wall.
Within hours of finding Renea's body, investigators arrested Douglas Irwin Shaw at his workplace. Not at his home, not in the middle of the night, at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, in broad daylight, surrounded by families and children enjoying a day at the theme park. Why arrest him there? Law enforcement typically makes public arrests for two reasons: flight risk or public safety. They believed Shaw might run if he caught wind of the investigation closing in, or they believed he posed an immediate danger. Either way, they didn't wait. Shaw was taken into custody without incident. And then something unusual happened, he confessed.
He was Mirandized and admitted to this heinous crime.
During questioning, Shaw admitted to being responsible for Renea's death. He told detectives he had killed her. According to later reports, he even admitted to throwing her phone onto the school roof, a deliberate act to mislead investigators and buy himself time. But here's what makes this case particularly unsettling. Nobody seems to know how Renea Lewis and Douglas Shaw knew each other. The family insists they weren't dating. Friends say they don't recognize his name. Police haven't established a clear connection between them. So how did Renea end up at that house? How did she cross paths with a man who would ultimately take her life? One of Renea's cousins, Jakeem Green, told reporters he believes Renea was brought to that house against her will.
If she was to see the house, she's not going to come in. She's not going to do that. So I feel like she was either drugged or under some type of influence or something.
This raises a chilling possibility. Was Renea incapacitated before she even knew where she was? Was she unconscious when Shaw brought her to that house? The evidence of a struggle, shattered windows, signs of resistance, suggests she fought back at some point.
I feel like she got her conscience back and she was fighting for her life.
Her family called her a fighter, and it seems she lived up to that description even in her final moments. Shaw's criminal history offers some insight into his character. In 2023, a former girlfriend obtained a restraining order against him. She described him as a narcissist with controlling tendencies, someone who believed everyone else was wrong. Her father corroborated this, calling Shaw manipulative. These are red flags, warning signs of someone capable of extreme behavior when they feel they're losing control. But did anyone see this coming? Did anyone suspect Shaw was capable of murder, of dismemberment, of the kind of calculated concealment that hid Renea's body from trained investigators? Charging documents later revealed that Shaw used a knife to kill Renea. She was stabbed, her body then dismembered and hidden behind that false wall. The brutality of it is almost incomprehensible. This wasn't a crime of passion that ended quickly. This was methodical, deliberate, the work of someone who wanted to make sure Renea Lewis was never found. Let's address the elephant in the room. How did police miss Renea's body during that first search? This is the question that has haunted investigators and the public since the case broke. And the answer reveals something important about the nature of crime scene investigation, particularly in hoarder environments. When officers conduct a welfare check and cursory search, they're looking for obvious signs, a person in distress, visible evidence of foul play, anything that immediately jumps out. But in a hoarder home, nothing is obvious. Pathways are narrow. Rooms are obscured. Entrances are hidden under piles of debris. And if someone has deliberately concealed a body behind a false wall, even the most thorough search might miss it without specific probable cause to start tearing into walls. One law enforcement expert described searching a hoarder property as like going to a major dump and trying to find a single item in a massive pile of refuse. You're not just looking for a person. You're looking through layers of obstruction that hide everything from view. The smell is another factor people don't often consider. A decomposing body produces a distinct, horrific odor. But in a home filled with garbage, rotting food, and other sources of decay, that smell can be masked or attributed to the general conditions of the property. It's a grim reality, but one that explains how Renea's body could have gone undetected during that initial search. Still, the question lingers. Could more have been done? Should the officers have been more thorough? With the Life 360 data pointing directly to that location, should they have obtained a search warrant immediately rather than conducting just a welfare check? These are fair questions, and they speak to a larger issue in missing persons investigations. Adults have the legal right to be missing. They can leave without telling anyone, disappear without explanation. Law enforcement has to balance respecting that autonomy with investigating potential crimes. It's a difficult line to walk, and sometimes, as in Renea's case, the initial assessment proves tragically wrong. The FBI's involvement on the second day suggests investigators quickly realized this wasn't a simple runaway case. The Ebony Alert activation indicates they understood the urgency. But by then, Renee had already been dead for days, hidden behind a wall that would only be discovered when officers returned with a warrant and the authority to conduct a truly invasive search. Renea Lewis's death marked the 14th homicide in Vallejo in 2025. For a city of roughly 120,000 people, that number is staggering. It speaks to a community grappling with violence, with loss, with the kind of tragedy that ripples outward and touches everyone. Neighbors came to the house on 14th Street after Renee's body was discovered. They left flowers, candles, balloons, a makeshift memorial for a woman many of them had never met. Because in small communities, every loss is felt personally. Every murder reminds you that it could have been your daughter, your sister, your friend. Douglas Shaw was formally charged with 1 count of felony murder on October 2, 2025. He appeared in Solano County Superior Court but did not enter a plea. He was denied bail and remains in custody. His next court appearance was scheduled for October 9th, where he would be formally arraigned. The family has called for the maximum punishment. They want justice for Renee, not just in the legal sense, but in the broader sense of accountability and truth. They want to know why. Why did Shaw kill her? What was the motive? How did they meet? What happened that night that led to such brutal violence? These questions may never be fully answered. Even with a confession, Shaw hasn't provided a complete picture. Confessions tell us what happened, but they rarely tell us why. And the why is what haunts us, what keeps us searching for understanding in cases that seem to defy reason. There's another layer to this story that deserves attention: the family's role in finding Renee. They didn't sit back and wait for police to solve the case. They used technology, the Life 360 app, to pinpoint her location. They searched the neighborhood themselves. They found her phone on that school roof. They pushed investigators to return to that house, to look harder, to dig deeper. In many ways, this case was solved because Renee's family refused to give up. They trusted their instincts, followed the evidence, and demanded answers. That persistence matters. It saved this case from becoming another cold file, another unsolved mystery. Instead of celebrating her birthday with family, her loved ones are planning a funeral. They're processing trauma that will take years to heal, if it ever fully does. They're facing a trial where they'll have to relive every horrific detail of how Renee died. And they're left wondering about the prank calls they received while searching for her. People pretending to be Renee, luring Terry to false addresses, demanding money. What kind of person does that? What kind of cruelty targets a grieving mother desperate to find her child? The memorial outside the house continues to grow. People leave notes, prayers, expressions of solidarity. Because Renee's story, as tragic as it is, represents something larger: the vulnerability we all face, the evil that sometimes hides in plain sight, the families who refuse to let their loved ones be forgotten. Douglas Shaw worked at a theme park. He was around children and families every day. He lived in that detached unit behind a house of horrors and nobody knew. That's the most unsettling part of all, how seamlessly monsters blend into ordinary life. As this case moves through the court system, more details will emerge. We'll learn about the evidence, the timeline, the forensics that connected Shaw to Renee's death. We'll hear testimony that will be difficult to stomach. But we'll also see a family's strength, a community's support, and a justice system working imperfectly, slowly, but working, to hold someone accountable for an unthinkable crime. Renea Lewis deserves to be remembered as more than a victim. She was a daughter, a cousin, a friend. She loved cooking and family. She was independent and strong. She had dreams for the future, plans that will never come to fruition. Her life mattered. And even though it was cut short in the most horrific way imaginable, her story will not be forgotten. So here's what I want to leave you with. This case reminds us that justice isn't always immediate. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it requires families who won't give up, investigators who dig deeper, and a community that refuses to look away. If you've been following this case, if Renee's story has affected you, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened that night? Do you believe Shaw acted alone? Are there still unanswered questions that bother you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if this documentary opened your eyes to a case you hadn't heard about, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to True Crime Unraveled here on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook and TikTok at True Crime Unraveled TV. Your engagement helps us tell more stories like this, stories that need to be told. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and never stop asking questions. This is True Crime Unraveled.